Mel from adventuresofmel.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make the best cinnamon biscuits in the world. These cinnamon biscuits are so easy to make. They're made with Bisquick and really only 4 ingredients, including the Bisquick. I really like them because they remind me of the Hardees cinnamon raisin biscuits that I used to get when I was a kid with my mom. You could switch these up. I don't have raisins in the recipe. You could add raisins, you could add walnuts, you could add pecans, you could add a little orange zest to the dough. Whatever floats your boat, you could make these biscuits your own. We're going to go ahead and mix up our biscuits, but before we do, we're going to mix up the cinnamon sugar mixture. Now, I like to use quite a bit of cinnamon, but we're going to start by putting our sugar in. I'm going to grab a teaspoon. Now we're going to need 8 teaspoons of sugar. Okay. And then we're going to need 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and I'm using ground Saigon cinnamon. This is a cinnamon that we got at Sam's Club, along with our big honkin' box of Bisquick. So 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. That's a really good cinnamon too, by the way. But then I'm just going to mix that up really good. Okay. Now I've already measured out my Bisquick, but you're going to want 15 ounces of Bisquick, which is equal to 2 of the smaller packs of Bisquick that you can get at the store. At least at our Walmart, we can get those smaller 7.5 ounce packs. Or you can weigh it out 15 ounces. I'm going to go ahead and add the cinnamon sugar directly to the biscuit mix. Just make sure I get it all. So we want lots of cinnamon flavor. And then I'm just going to mix it up. And this is a recipe that I usually just mix by hand because it's so easy and simple. I hate to even dirty up my mixing paddle and bowl for this. So I'm going to mix that up really good. And then we're going to put in 1 cup of water. And we'll just mix it till everything is mixed together into a dough. You can use any kind of biscuit mix too with this. You can use Bisquick, you can use Pioneer, you can use homemade biscuit mix, and you'll have a pretty stiff, I mean not real stiff, but pretty stiff dough. But it should all mix up really well together. All right. So now I'm going to grab my cookie sheet and we're going to go ahead and just drop these onto the cookie sheet because these are drop biscuits. So no rolling, no cutting, none of that. We're just going to drop them right on. I'll grab that real quick. So we're just going to take the dough. You're going to take forkfuls. Now you can make these as big or as small as you want. I'm going to do about this size right here. And I'm just going to drop them onto my cookie sheet about 1 to 2 inches apart. They're so simple and easy. This is something I really like to make on the weekends when we want a little treat with our breakfast. Sometimes we make pancakes and sometimes we make cinnamon biscuits. And the dough is really fluffy too. They used to have a Bisquick, actual Bisquick cinnamon biscuit mix. And then where we lived before, the store stopped carrying it. I haven't seen it in a really long time. So I came up with this recipe to kind of make up for it. And these kind of remind me of the old Hardee's cinnamon raisin biscuits, except they don't have raisins, of course. But they do remind me a lot of those biscuits. I remember when I was a kid, my mom and I would stop at Hardee's sometimes when we lived in the country, so a lot of times we had to make day-long trips into the city to get stuff, to get supplies and stuff. So we would stop at Hardee's and get breakfast, and we'd always share a pack of those cinnamon raisin biscuits, and they were always so good. I don't know what they're like today because I haven't had them in so long, but these definitely take me back to those. Okay, I'm going to try to squeeze 2 more on the cookie sheet. I'm running out of room. And it's okay if they get right up next to each other. It's not going to hurt anything, but I like to space them apart just a little bit. Okay, now let's see if we can add some dough onto some others. This will make between 12 to 15 biscuits, depending on the size that you make them. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and throw these in the oven. You're going to bake them at 425 degrees for about 8 to 11 minutes, maybe a little longer. Oven times will vary depending on your oven. So I'm going to throw these in the oven real quick. Set my timer and we're all set. And now we can make the frosting to go on top. While our biscuits are baking, we're going to go ahead and mix up a simple powdered sugar frosting that we can brush on the tops of them when they come out of the oven. And so we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of butter, and you can melt it or you can get it out ahead of time and soften it. I just never remember, so I put it in the microwave and it usually melts it. 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to do half a teaspoon of vanilla. Wow, that opened up easily that time. Usually doesn't open up that easy because someone in the house keeps tightening it really tight. Whoops. A little bit more, but half a teaspoon of vanilla. I always got to give it a whiff when I open it up. It smells so good, and I've read that it has calming properties. Alright, and then we're going to do, I'm looking at my recipe to make sure I'm doing it right. After the vanilla, we're going to go ahead and add in 3 cups of powdered sugar. And you might have to add this in just a little bit at a time and alternate it with your milk so that it's not so much at one time. But get us 3 cups. I like to level my cups off. Make sure I have a full cup and then level it off, so that I don't have a heaping amount of extra powdered sugar. And I just usually use a table knife to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my milk in, and I'm going to stir it up, or mix it, what I have so far, and then I'll add in the extra cup. Okay, that's a really thin frosting, so that's why I say to add a 3rd cup of powdered sugar. I love these canisters, but they're a little narrow, so it's easy to spill stuff out when you're trying to dip it out. Alright, so now I'll just finish mixing this. Take a minute to scrape the sides. You want your icing to be thin enough to brush it on, but thick enough that it doesn't all slide off of the biscuit. You want some of it to stick to the biscuit. So And you're going to be brushing it on when the biscuits are nice and hot, so it kind of gets that melty, crackly texture to it. Alright, and we have frosting, vanilla frosting. Now you can add a little bit of zing to it by adding, you could add in a little bit of almond extract. You could add in some orange zest or lemon zest if you like the citrusy flavor to your cinnamon biscuits. And now we've got a simple powdered sugar frosting. This is a frosting that I use for a lot of things. Sometimes I just make it thicker, especially if I'm making cookies or something like that. But in this case, we wanted it a little bit thinner where it just kind of runs off your spatula. So we're going to set that aside until our biscuits are done, and then we'll brush it on. Just waiting on the biscuits. They're almost done. They smell really good. It smells like cinnamon rolls, but without all the work. There they are. Alright, they are looking good. They're a little bit golden, which is good. We want them to be a little bit golden, but not too brown. And they feel like they're pretty much done. Alright, since we have our icing already made, and I suggest using, I know you can't see it because the icing's all over it, but I suggest using a pastry brush for this step. And then you can just brush the icing right on. It's thin enough that it'll just melt right on. And it'll eventually kind of dry up and create a sort of glaze. It will pool around the biscuits just a little bit, and that's okay. The kids love it because they can come in and get little bits and pieces of icing. Extra icing for their biscuit. And you want to brush the icing on while the biscuits are warm right out of the oven. You can wait about 5 minutes, but you don't want to wait too long because you really want that icing to kind of soak into the hot biscuit and create that crackly glaze that's so good. Now, some suggestions for the icing. You can add caramel extract to give it a little bit of a caramel flavor. You could even add maple extract or a little bit of maple syrup to give it a mapley flavor. You can also add orange zest to it if you really like a citrus flavor with your cinnamon biscuits. You'll probably have a little bit of leftover icing, and that's okay. You can stick it in the fridge and save it for the next time you make another batch. You can even freeze this icing and get it out much later on when you're ready for it. Once your icing is on, it'll probably crackle up, and you can just go ahead and serve your biscuits. I'm going to pull this up off of here. Just put it on a plate. That looks so good. So now it's time for the moment of truth. Take a bite. I love making these, and my kids are going to be so excited that we have a whole batch now. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and if you want to be alerted when we make new videos, be sure and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.